Welcome, everyone. I'm Angelo Robles to Angelo Robles' Effective Family Office podcast, where I look to distill the best practices and best ideas of the world's most successful families and their family offices. I hope to provide thought-provoking opinions and feature amazing thought leaders to our listeners of the podcast with an eye towards the future of the family office. Today's podcast is titled From Hedge Fund Manager to Brewery Entrepreneur. Meet the entrepreneur uniting and employing rival gang members to stop street violence across America. We have three special guests with us today. George Taylor, serial entrepreneur and founder of True Colors. Khalilah Olokunola, also known as KO, which is usually what we'll call her. It makes my life a little bit easier. Born and raised in Brooklyn and VP of Human Resources for True Colors Brewing. And last but certainly not least, Juan Bethea. We'll be calling Juan Press, by the way. And very interesting background, a member of the Blood Street Gang since the age of 14. And today he's a leader in the True Colors community and currently heads up brewery operations. Everyone, George, KO, and Press, welcome to the show.
Thank you. We appreciate you having us.
Well, no, it's my honor, and especially what you're doing and what all of you are doing during today's time. So to give our audience a little bit of context, we'll be doing this a little bit in a different format today. Part of it will be me asking questions, mainly the early initial part. And as you can see, if you're watching it on video, all three are on the same screen. But there will be some level of PowerPoint and video as well. Again, we hope that plays over well for the audio only in the podcast. But the core message and what everyone who's joining us today is doing, I think is really going to be really, really important, no matter what medium of audio or visual or both that you're going to hear it. George, I'm going to start with you. An entrepreneur who has created businesses, built up a level of success, being that I'm based in Greenwich, Connecticut, it touches my heart when I saw on your bio, hedge fund manager, to founding a brewery startup and what you're looking to do in terms of your mission and the hires. I mean, make us understand. It just sounds amazing. What led you to do this?
Well, maybe probably really wasn't the first word that popped into your mind, crazy maybe or something, right? But, it didn't start off as a business. It started off, what happened was 5 years ago, there was a 16-year-old who was shot and killed in a drive-by shooting just a handful of blocks from my office. And prior to that, I didn't even know we had gangs in the city. That's sort of how naive I was. I live in a gated community and work in an office looks kind of like Google, right? But, I was pissed and wanted to understand what was driving the violence and reached out to the district attorney, who's a friend of mine, and I said, hey, I want to meet whoever you guys think is highest ranking gang member in town because I don't get it. And so it was never really intended to become a business. In fact, it wasn't for several years later that it even got to the point where we considered that. But that's what kicked it off was, okay, there's somebody out there that thinks it's okay to drive down the streets of our city. We have a gun or pull the trigger. I want to know why.
And, George, what, from your upbringing, what made you want to be active, not just as an entrepreneur, we'll put that one a little bit aside for the moment, but relative to benefiting our society here in America, which right now we're going through some grave challenges. What inside you, what in your background, what sparked this?
So I did have a hedge fund that I ran for a while, but I've also most of my career has been in software startups. And so, if that's what you do, you look for, or you see problems and you try to find a way to solve them and then scale those solutions, hopefully across the country, around the world. And so for me, it was just, it makes all the sense in the world to want to find out what was causing the problem. And I think that's just part of being an entrepreneur.
And I have a question for KO. KO, I read some of your bio, and by the way, love to Brooklyn. I'm going to Brooklyn tomorrow. And related to that, I have my son who's 16 and my grandson who's a little younger. with us during COVID-19. And this weekend, we watched something that goes back to my era that takes place in Brooklyn, Spike Lee's great movie, Do the Right Thing. Have you seen it before?
Of course. Yeah.
Of course, from Brooklyn. I would expect nothing less. So I forgot about towards the end of the movie, it has the horrific incident, the murder, that police officer choking out and killing, unfortunately, a person that was what some would deem to be the antagonist in the movie. But again, that's all subject to interpretation. But the social impact of that with what's going on now with George Floyd, and I even forgot about that. And some of the elements of the movie, and I come from initially an inner city environment. I'm half Latin and half Italian, so I can relate a little bit to some of the challenges and some of the dynamics that was New York in the late 80s. I mean, that movie, thinking back, it must have hit really home to you with what we're going through now.
Yeah, I think that what we realize is that some of the issues that we're facing now started a long time ago. And we put so much focus on the today that we haven't taken time to go back to the root of some of the issues that actually started it. You know, and the movie is an example of unresolved hurt, unresolved pain, and how reconciliation is the responsibility of everyone.
Yeah, I mean, that's really for sure. And Press, a question for you, going from being in a gang to being head of brewery for a wonderful startup that has grand ambitions and some of the right resources behind it, and your quest to be, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, a Cicerone, kind of a master brewer of beers. If you could talk about that transition.
Well, first and foremost, I'm still a gamer. I'm still always will be. But the transition is, it actually started it started with my belief system first. This is something that actually True Colors helped instill in me, change the way I see myself. See that I was more than just a product of my environment, but actually that I had something to offer my environment.
You know, it might be, if you talk about the transition, it might be interesting or helpful if we step back and go through, you know, from that moment when Shane was shot and killed in the drive-by, like the things that went on in True Colors and sort of the transition that people made, which led us to found True Colors, and that's really, to a large degree, that's how you got to where you are. Do you agree? I don't know, does that make, we can sort of step through that story if you're interested.
Yes, of course. I would love to hear that story.
So, like, you know, after Shane was shot, I spent probably 2 years just sort of hanging out with the gangs, again, just trying to understand what's driving the violence. And got to meet all kinds of gang members here locally, as well as traveling around the country, trying to figure out, you know, who are the other gang leaders out there, and then what are other cities doing trying to stop the violence. And it was really interesting. You know, my goal was, okay, if I want to stop the violence tomorrow or really, really fast, what would you do? Well, what I found was there are really only two solutions that are out in the world today. One is either there's a group of organizations out there that are working with middle school children, trying to get them not to join gangs, which obviously if that was working, we wouldn't be here talking about it. And then the other is groups like a great example of the homeboy industry out in LA, a terrific organization that works with guys that are 40 years of age maybe, or certainly older, and they sort of age out of the gangs. They've been incarcerated a long time. And really they're fighting recidivism, which is a very different thing than trying to fight the violence. And so we came back and we're like, well, you know, if you want to stop the violence tomorrow, you probably need to talk to the folks that are either involved in it or around it. And so that's how True Colors got started. And so, you know, as I spent time with the gangs, I met people like Press and others who had really strong street skills. Skills could be, I mean, think about it. If you lead a gang, you have strong leadership skills. You might
have sales
skills. You might have strong accounting skills, all that kind of stuff, marketing. And so we were like, well, I wonder if any of that stuff could translate into a legitimate business, and how would you go about that, right? And so the first thing we did is we ran a test. And we hired 3 guys that were good at selling things on the street. And we brought them into a software company I called Untapped, and just threw them into the regular sales program and see if they could sell analytics software. And 2 remarkable things occurred. One, within 48 hours, they were 3 of the favorite people in the office building, which surprised me just because of the cultural gaps. But then also within 3 months, which is the normal sort of spin up for a salesperson, they were crushing it and selling analytics software. Like, well, wow, that's interesting. And then we ran the second test. This is when we brought press in, and we said, hey, I'm gonna hire all the leaders within the city because I want to make sure leadership is with the idea of coming together, rivals coming together, stopping the violence, and creating a for-profit business to support the mission. So we're gonna hire all the leaders, bring them in, put them through this 2-month boot camp. And we paid them $50,000 a year. It was their salary because you got to compete with street money, right? And brought them into this boot camp. And like, Chris, this is where maybe you want to talk about change. So this is when this whole thing sort of started. We had, I think it was 13 of you, 12 co-guys, rival guys, mind you, like people sitting across from the table and put bullets into others across the table. So there was a lot of hostility. The first 2 or 3 days were rough, like really loud. I was like, what in the world have I got myself involved in? But maybe talk about that and then that transition, right?
Yeah, it was like very, very chaotic. Like George said, I mean, you had people who had issues probably like a week or the night before, myself included with a couple of individuals. And I caused to have that belief that, hey, this person is an asshole or this person is a bad person based off of just something that happened in the street. But as being here in True Colors and getting that time for that boot camp to actually get to know and understand people, you realize like, hey, now I'm actually taking the time out to get to know this guy. Maybe he's not the asshole I thought he was. We actually agree on both of the same things. We actually like some of the same things. We actually have some of the same goals. And that right there actually opens that door for transition. Once you start changing beliefs about how you see things, then you can be more open to receive other things as well.
And for us, like that is, like what you believe about yourself and the environment around you determines both the direction and the velocity at which you grow or don't. And, you know, KO runs HR, and which to us is all about culture and educational growth. And maybe you can talk about the boot camps and how that all works. So I think that is like the pivotal moment when someone comes in. By the way, anyone who comes into True Colors, before they do a lick of work doing anything else, they spend 2 months in this boot camp getting prepared to grow and to succeed and to work.
Yeah, so that boot camp is 8 weeks of life skills, social skills, business skills, and beer. We put, like George said, we spend a lot of time focusing on beliefs because we understand that beliefs, opens up the door to teach skills. And in that process, we have a group of guys that may come in, in this belief that they deserve the opportunity that they're about to receive or that they can utilize some of the skills that we are about to pour into them. And so we spend that time teaching them and preparing them, not just for where they are and for life, but for the roles that they will eventually walk in. And, for us, the framework that we use inwardly in True Colors, part of that is beyond the block experiences. So it's not just formal classroom training, but it's taking, our team members outside of their block experiences to introduce them to something new in life. And we understand that when you give opportunity hands-on in the experience, you learn quicker and faster, and you can take that experience and share it with your team members as well.
And that was, you talked like what sort of kicked off True Colors. I think that at this point, we were like 3 years into trying to figure out what was driving the violence and how we might go at stopping it. And that 2-month boot camp was sort of a pivotal moment because when we hired the gang leaders, we basically made a deal. We said, hey, we're going to pay you the $50,000. We're going to judge on 3 things as to whether this is successful, and if it's not, then it's been a wild ride, interesting experiment, but this ain't gonna work. And the 3 things were this. We said, listen, you gotta come in, you gotta show me the discipline, positive when you come in here, everything we do over the next 2 months. 2, we're gonna be pouring just lots of information into your head. We had guys coming out from Silicon Valley, friends of mine from Startup World or VC World coming out, teaching all sorts of things around business and entrepreneurship. Show me you can take that knowledge and utilize it. And 3rd, and this was really important, and it was important, this is very important for writers, but show me you have influence over the gang members underneath you. And the way we wanted to do that was, I don't want to see one gang-related shooting during this 2-month period. And just to understand or for context, like we were seeing a gang shooting twice a week prior to this boot camp starting. And so off we go, and at the end of the 2 months, lo and behold, it worked. And not only did we not see a gang shooting during that 2-month period, it was another 7 months before a gang-related shooting occurred. Again, where we were seeing them prior to that twice a week. And so that showed that the gang leaders, one, could buy into a vision bigger than themselves. They could begin to believe things about their future that they didn't believe before. And then secondly, that the hierarchy within the gangs could be utilized to spread a message of nonviolence and about their future, right? And so that was a real pivotal point. And after that, that's sort of when we said, okay, yeah, this looks like this could work and we're going to move forward.
And, George, you mentioned it earlier in terms of innately by being part of a brethren of something bigger than yourself, which kind of is what a gang is, it automatically fosters a sense of leadership, of culture, of systems. There are actually some elements that work within family and businesses that happen in entities like quote unquote gangs, clubs, whatever verbiage you elect to use. You're able to identify that and then bring them together. Maybe a question for press is, what's the motivation for you looking back a couple of years ago when this is all new to you and this guy that you don't know, George, is coming to you and the community with this idea, but you must have had a raised eyebrow about, is this guy real and legit?
Yeah, I actually did. It's funny that you say that. When I first met George, I actually got a call from a detective. And mind you, I am a felon, so getting a call from a police officer was never a good thing. I was ready to kind of skip town on George. But I actually was like, hey, I'm gonna meet this guy, and I actually Googled George, came down with a shirt and tie. And like George said in the beginning, it was just about competing with street money. So at first, it was like, I don't hear what you gotta say, but I'm more interested in the money side. But what transition that is, realizing that, hey, what my organization say we stand for, and the cause that I believe in life, this is the same thing, this is the same opportunity I have now. If I could change the economic status of my people, like racial devices, if I can help my people get on their own stuff, like their own houses, I can show my homeboys something different that they don't have to go to jail, they don't have to sell drugs, then this is the perfect opportunity.
I think too, so the other thing, so the funny story about Press is, I don't know if you've heard him say he came in a suit and tie. The police sent 3 guys over to me that they said had a lot of status on the street. The other 2 were maybe, as you might expect, I remember he came in a suit and tie. I wrote him off. I'm like, y'all got the wrong dude. And I didn't talk to him for like 6 months because I didn't think he was street enough. And then the other thing that happened is when we brought guys in, everyone was convinced that this was some elaborate sting and we were the police. And so for I don't know how many months, everyone was looking around for cameras and mics and that sort of thing.
Yeah, no, I could definitely kind of see how that could be the case. You had to prove that you were real, and it's not going to happen by the words coming out of your mouth. It's going to be your actions, and your actions not just for one day or 1 week, but over time. Maybe for KO or Press, what do you think was the opportunity that these gang members saw to put aside their rivalry, which is incredibly very, very hard and difficult to do?
So, the opportunity, it all starts with money, right? Everybody saw an opportunity to make money without, you don't have to watch your back. If you come in and you get a legitimate job, you don't have to look behind you on a daily basis. You can work in your house, you can take care of your kids. It was the experiences. But I think for us, after the money, because everybody comes in here because we offer livable wages, right? It is the belief that better is possible, that there is more, that you can change your life and change the dynamic of what happens behind closed doors for you and your children and then your community. And if you know how gangs were originally created and existed, it was to change community. And it was about having that opportunity to return back to your original roots, to build family, to build community, to build consistency, and to no longer be cohorts in conflict or in crisis, but to be cohorts in reestablishing what the community should look like and can look like together as a whole.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And taking a little bit into that, maybe with Press, basically, how is this opportunity viewed inside your community? But let me expand that a little bit. Basically, how did other gang members react to your involvement? And are they now involved in True Colors?
Yes, I actually got quite a few of my own personal homeboys that work for True Colors now. But also not just locally. I mean, if we talk nationally, out in California, me and Jordan out in California, and I introduced them to some of my homeboys out there in Nixon Garden Project, and they actually buy into this. I told them, hey, this is what we're doing, and they're all for it. They support it because, I mean, nobody wants to be out here shooting and selling drugs, but that's just the nature of the beast in the environment that most people are living in or that they're aware of. But when they see the opportunity to do something better, it's like, hey, if you're doing better, that means we all doing better.
George, what are the reasons why this is working now and why it will continue and grow and expand?
I mean, so we reached a tipping point sometime, I don't know, maybe a year ago, where people began to buy into the vision. And the reason it works now is frankly just that, at its highest level. You know, people work for money to a certain point, but then that wears off. And so the idea that people can come together, grow this company, scale it across the country, and have an impact well outside of North Carolina is, I think, what drives people. I know it's what drives me.
And you probably had an opportunity to look at this as being under a philanthropic or a foundation. You elected to make it a for-profit. Did you give that consideration, and why did you go to a for-profit model?
We didn't really actually give it, we gave it a lot of moments consideration, and then decided that it was not in line with our culture and what we stood for. And that's not good, bad about nonprofits, but we have a fairly aggressive culture. We believe that we believe that we should be able to produce a product and produce a company that funds our mission. It's the way we are. We don't want grants. We're not looking for donations. And so it didn't for 1 minute really become an option, I don't think. And I mean, I can remember sitting in the early meetings with 60 or 70 gang members in the conference room talking about what this might look like. And maybe once we mentioned it, but the guys are, I mean, you're talking about guys that are on the street, that are running operations. These are for-profit guys, right? They understood that model. They related to that model. Certainly that's my background too. And so it really was never a question. And I think today, you know, we looked at it again since then. We believe that the for-profit nature, the fact that we have to produce really good product and we have to distribute and sell and do all of that is one of the key drivers of our culture.
And how could this model be scaled? Is it being duplicated? Are other industries adopting a similar model to what you're doing?
I don't know of others that are doing a similar model, but we definitely are building it to scale. The brewery that we're building here is fairly large. It produces about 55,000 barrels, which for context is about 780,000 cases of beer per year.
Wow.
And then we also have teamed up with a large brewer who's going to help us produce and sell additional beer across the country. Our goal and expectation is that we'll be across the country within 2 years of the first can coming off the line. And so we're carefully architecting what we do here in Wilmington, both on the business side and on the social mission platform side, which is a very significant portion of our company, in a way that we can then go into other states, and drop in a similar model. So we have every expectation of expanding into other areas across the country. And currently, we're actually being recruited by several cities to do just that.
And given your relationships among investors, among people effectively in private equity, are you giving a little bit of a blueprint to them for what is working for you and what you're doing for them to take that and do their own thing with it and benefit their communities?
I mean, we share information on what we're doing with anyone that asks, and certainly other communities we share information with on our coursework in our Disrupt You program. We do a lot of events related to knocking down racial divisiveness, and all of that stuff we share. And as we iterate, we share again. But to be quite honest, most of the organizations we speak with are taking a different approach. Like we haven't really seen, I don't know of any other organization in the country that's actually going after gang violence and working with those that maybe are close to it. We're the only organization I know that actively recruits active gang members. If you look at, so someone asked the other day, like, what's your recruiting look like? When we first start, we hire the leadership because gangs they've got hierarchy and status. Then we hire people with influence within those gangs. And then we actively look for people who have potential to be involved in violence, and we hire them. And that's sort of, it's an important concept. Like, the person was like, well, why would you make them leave the gangs? Well, the really simple answer is, if we only hired people that were leaving the gangs, that means we would have to hire every gang member, which is just not feasible. If we let them stay in the gangs or ask them to stay in the gangs, then that means we have influence within the organization. We can begin to train people and coach them on leadership and, and what can lift their gang members. And that works.
Related to that, and I think we had a good question come in from one of our participants today, Julianne Straley, is the ultimate goal to dissolve gangs, reduce gang members? But here's an interesting one. Or she says, or just to change the gang's mission.
So I don't think we can ever, if gangs could be dissolved, removed, it would have already happened. I mean, good Lord, the government has spent a fortune trying to do that. It's not going to happen. And so that was sort of part of it, is if you can't beat them, join them, right? And that's, my belief is actually that there are so many positive things with gangs, it would be silly to try and disband them or move them aside. If you look at gangs, they've got leadership. I mean, this would surprise you, but gangs have written key values and mission and vision statements that you and I would want to join. They talk about brotherhood and growth and knowledge and all this sort of thing. The problem is when you get down to the bottom rung, you've got such poverty and such difficult situations that those guys aren't listening or looking at what the gangs stand on. They're just trying to survive. And so if you can deal with that and figure out how to work with that, then all of a sudden it changes. And then guess what? If you look at the projects, some of these housing projects around America, guess who the most powerful organizations in those housing projects are? It's the gangs. And so if you can begin to get the gangs to grow and understand what their future looks like in a positive way, then they start doing the same thing within the project. Then you really start getting something going on, right? And so that's the concept.
Are there also, and this I guess be for all of you, besides transitioning principles, which are often good in gangs into business, from leadership to culture to community to a sense we're greater than one, are there things that you are also teaching, for lack of a better word, like financial independence, investing? What other benefits are you providing, as if what you're not doing is enough? Of course it is, but I'm interested in that as well.
Yeah, so that's a great question. For us, like George said, like in our culture, education is really important to us, but also the four core is what we call it, which is money, housing, transportation, and healthy relationships. So we spend a whole lot of time working with our team on budgeting, on saving, making sure you have stable housing and reliable transportation. And, once you come in, everybody has a personal and professional development plan that puts them on the track so that with the livable wages that they're making, they're also able to purchase stable housing. They're also able to purchase reliable transportation. They're able to do things with their kids like take trips. And so the model is not just teaching them skills or teaching them how to do better on the streets, but teaching them how to do life as well. And so finances is a really important component to us. And we've worked with other organizations and coming in, like Draper and Tony Robbins with our curriculum. And we recently worked with a company to put out a financial website that our team has been using to assist them in budgeting. We have team members that are here now that have paid for cars, townhomes, they're getting married, they're purchasing condos. And so when you look at the model of True Colors, and George talked about not changing, disbanding gangs or changing the mission, we're working with them as cohorts and rebuilding a community. We're partners. And in this partnership, part of it is learning how to be financially stable.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. A little bit of a follow-up to that. How is it being impacted by the current tone and national awareness to the issues that we're seeing now that are coming to the forefront in ways we haven't seen in decades over the last couple of weeks, beginning with the murder of George Floyd? There's a very strong racial divide, and what a lot of people in my audience perhaps don't understand, they don't know what it's like to be in your shoes. they can't relate to it. But as opposed to just walking away, how do you bridge that community together? So I spoke to one of your employees yesterday, and he told me something that you guys do, which I thought was amazing. I'm going to mess it up a little bit, but the gist of it is, let's get 100 African Americans together. Let's get 100 white people together. Let's have a social function, but every couple of minutes they rotate, talking to someone else of a different race, nationality. And at the end of the day, this person said, not only was it great, we basically realized what press said earlier about with rival gang members. At the end of the day, we have relatively similar goals. We want to be able to have freedom. We want to be able to enjoy time with our family and loved ones. And we want the opportunity. We're not asking for a handout. We want the opportunity to be, quote unquote, successful and the commonality of goals. I was a little rambling there. Pardon me on that, but I think you got the gist of it. If you could comment, that'd be great.
I mean, it's basically like a racial networking party, right? And so you're right, we invite some number of African Americans and white folks. The party, it's very intentional, I guess. You come in, you get a table number, you're going to sit down with someone from a different race for 8 minutes at a time. And then when we first did it, we were like, oh my gosh, it's going to be too long, and people are going to freak out and know what to say. But it actually, then we ring the bell during the next one. People don't want to move because they're having such good conversations. This goes on 4 times. Then after that, we have a little bit of a party, and we have black and white music. I think we have a rapper and a country singer last time, or something like that. And we have black and white food. So we did a poll on Facebook, and we said, first of all, we said, what do you guys think is traditional African American food? And everyone said fried chicken. And we're like, I mean, first of all, it's universal, but okay, you can have it. And then we did a poll. We didn't really know what white food was. And so we did a poll and we said, what do you guys think? And the overwhelming response was, y'all don't cook anything. So we had sushi. And and then we had black and white cookies and Oreos for dessert. So the point is, like, it's very intentional, and we laugh at some of the stereotypes. And when we start the meeting off, me or somebody will stand up and go, hey, listen, we're here to have conversations to understand. You have to come into it with that mindset. Someone may say something that would out on the street upset you. Assume it's coming from a place that's good, and either tell them you don't want to talk about it or everyone handle it. But like the whole point, like when I look at True Colors and some of the bridges that we've been able to cross, it starts with that conversation, right? And it's an honest conversation with the intention to understand and not to prove that you're right. And just because I understand, by the way, doesn't mean I have to agree. But the moment I begin to understand, then all of a sudden I have empathy, and then maybe we can start working together to solve some of the problems that we're describing, right?
Yeah, I mean, we did a little online gathering with a couple of people of diverse backgrounds, African American, Latin, and white. And generally, some of the feedback that we got from people that were, quote unquote, not white was, listen, you're learning about George Floyd because someone had a video camera. That's the tip of the iceberg. I mean, that just happens to be where someone was videotaping it. That happens all the time. There is systemic racism in institutions. Has it gotten better over the decades? Yes, but slower than we would like. I don't know if there's a great answer to it. It's people coming up from diverse communities that are coming together, that are going to one day be the future police officers, politicians, business leaders. Again, is this something that only time will take care of? But what could we do to speed that process up? And it seems like you guys are just incredible in terms of what you're doing to make us all more aware of that.
I mean, you have to have if you don't know someone, it's hard to have any empathy towards them. And so I think that is the danger, danger is the right word, but the thing that worries me about what's going on today is that there's protests and there's conversation and all this Facebook and talking heads on TV, but tomorrow, like, what is the action we're going to take that was different than yesterday? Are you going to get out and meet people? Because that it's very easy to have opinions about other people when you don't know them. Once you get to know someone, and you know their name, you know their background, it's very hard not to empathize and join them. You mentioned the term "in your shoes" a minute ago. We have show on True Colors TV we do called In Your Shoes. And in that, I interview guys that grew up in gangs or in difficult situations in the hood. And you listen to these stories and you just can't help but say, my gosh, if I was in your shoes, I'd have been way more gangster and way more angry and way more violent, frankly, because it's been so difficult. You're one of the most resilient human beings I ever met. And so, like, when you start to know what people went through that brought them to where they are and the choices that they've made, and by the way, like, choices are based on what you perceive as available to you at the time. It doesn't really matter what really might be. It's what you perceive as available. And you understand very easily how someone gets involved in some of the activities that, people don't want to see.
And George, we are getting some questions in from the live audience as well. Knowing that this is a for-profit, knowing that you have, and again, we didn't really go into it, George's background, what he's done and what he's doing now, and his hands in multiple things, he's very, very successful. He's being a little modest. This is someone, I'm not going to say has a Midas touch, but he's been hardworking and very, very successful at what he does. There are families and investors and people listening in. The key word is impact investing. I want to invest and I want to make money. Let's not try to hide around that. I'm not here to lose money as an investment or make just a little bit. It's too risky investing in a private company. So I want to do really good on my investing, but I care about what's happening in this country and around the world. I care about the unrest, and you're bringing this together, which is so amazing. So there are people that would like to learn more effectively about the investing and business opportunity of an organization like yours in True Colors. If you could walk them through that.
Sure. So True Colors, like all the other startups, I've done 11 startups, mostly in tech. But True Colors is just like them in a couple of ways. One, it's investor backed. And we're, like every other startup I'm involved in, I feel like perpetually raising money. So if anyone's interested, please feel free to reach out. Two, all of our employees have stock options, and so they have incentives, or they're incented to become part of it and help grow their organization. And three, we intend to scale this into a national brand. That's what it's being architected to be. We sell beer today. We make other things under that brand going forward, but it's a national brand built around nonviolence and unity. We've done a lot of work trying to mitigate risk prior to launch. We think we've put together, we've put together a blue chip list of partners, both in the beer space, the retail space, retail and grocery, and those sorts of venues where most of the beer is sold. We have lots of national press that when we launch will tell our story, from 60 Minutes, who's doing a story on us, to New York Times, the Journal, and all that sort of thing. We've spent a lot of time doing market analysis. We hired a group out of Chicago called Civis, who is, through data, proven that our sales projections are accurate. And so we're very much a for-profit business that has every intention of scaling large and scaling fast. That said, the reason we exist, and frankly, the reason that, let's be real, the world doesn't need another brewery. There's thousands of them, and there are millions of beers. The reason people just almost overwhelmingly want to buy our beer, and we've got tons of data to show that, is because of the mission and who its press and its scale and it's their team and what they want to do in the world. Obviously, we have to create a great tasting beer, which we've done. But the reason everyone's going to try our beer is because of what we stand on. And that is, from a business standpoint, and we don't look at it as marketing. In fact, we're really careful to not look at it that way. But the truth of the matter is that mission is so unique in the way we go at it. And we have numbers that back up that we can back up our success with our numbers. That's what causes, well, frankly, our customers to come in and buy our beer, but also the wide range of investors and blue chip corporate partners that we have to get involved with True Colors.
What would you say to people that believe you have to sacrifice profit for mission, which might have been the case 20 years ago, but I think recently, and especially during COVID, companies that have a strong social message of equality, of equal rights for women, of et cetera, they're doing better They're actually doing better than companies that seem to be antiquated. And if you're going to attract young people of talent, they're going to want to be in something that's bigger than themselves, which ironically relates a little bit to gang and club membership to begin with.
That's a human thing. That's not a race or a gang thing. That's just human.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's very much true. But, I don't like, I can tell you one thing that's unique, or not unique, but different about True Colors is our mission came first. And so could we make more money with our mission? No, we couldn't sell any beer without our mission, not on a scale anyway. When was the last time you saw a brewery scale to a national level? No, it's been a long time. Not as fast as we were. When was the last time you saw a company like Anheuser-Busch want to get behind a new brewery and turn them into a national brewery overnight? Never. The reason they want to do it is the social mission. That's the whole point. And so, no, could we make more money without it? No, we would go bankrupt without our social mission.
And I guess one of the beauty of True Colors is the partnership across race and experience. How important do you think this type of partnership is moving forward to move the needle on racial equality?
So our number one metric across the country across the company is violence. That's what we measure. And as crazy as it might sound, we get data every 2 weeks on violent crimes within the neighborhoods that we care about. And we're constantly working to drive all that to zero. That said, there are underlying drivers, I guess, of that violence. Things like generational poverty, racial divisiveness, certainly are two of them. Those are two we focus hard on. And so we do spend a lot of time on those because those are the drivers that either drive the numbers we care about in the right way or the wrong way. And so that's what brings us into these areas like the racial networking party or the Disrupt You and all this stuff that we do is because ultimately, and we stay very focused on this, our success lies on whether we're able to take gang violence to zero or damn near close to zero. Like that is our commitment and that's our goal. If you look at our business plan, if you look at our goals, we have a commitment in our business plan to our investors that when we come into a city, we will take gang violence down 70% in 120 days. We can show you we've done it. We can show you exactly how it works, and it does work. We make a further commitment to raise the prosperity index, which is something we measure within the communities we care about, generally housing projects in lower income urban communities over time through working with the gangs and through our Disrupt You curriculum program that then leads to jobs.
You mentioned some big brands there, like, of course, for American beer, Anheuser-Busch, InBev is, I guess, the underlying ownership company. So there is a relationship that you guys have with InBev?
Yeah, AB InBev, I knew them through my software company Untapped that was in the beer space. We've done them for years. And they're an amazing group. In fact, if you look at their corporate mission, it talks about bringing people together. So this aligns very well with that, and they've been tremendous supporters and are working with us on how we scale outside of North Carolina and Virginia, which is our initial markets across the country, and in both the production side and the distribution side.
And I'm asking this from a little bit of ignorance, but from a business perspective, with restaurants being closed, just starting to open up or outdoor, but at minimum limited seating, I'm assuming a lot of goods like alcohol, specifically beer, is going to be sold through partners like bars and restaurants. Is that making it more challenging now during COVID-19?
Beer sales are up. It's just all going to the grocery store.
Wow.
Here, right?
I guess we're home drinking.
Yeah, either you're going to drink it at home or you're going to drink it in the restaurant, whichever is available, or preferably both for us. But we expect by the time we launch in Q1 of next year that hopefully those venues are open. They're an important part of it because, again, everything we do focuses in back on the mission. If all you're doing is drinking beer at home by yourself, you're not having the conversation that we hope you have about racial divisiveness, about poverty, about violence, about what could happen, what the future might look like if you actually got to know the people that you're talking about. And so we want you going to the venues. We want you, looking on the can of our beer and saying, Crossroads, the neighborhood saying one of our lagers. we are at a crossroads. The country's at a crossroads. We're all individually at a crossroads. It's time to make a decision. Not what are you going to talk about, because we've all talked about it way too damn long. What are we going to do about it now? And so we hope you get into venues and drink your beer and talk about these things, and then start acting.
And press, in terms of wanting to be a master brewmaker, if that's the right word, a Cicerone, and moving towards the certification in that, I mean, you could have walked into a good situation at True Colors, but not have that ambition to want to take it a step further, to be a master at something, to be a brewery, you know, the top 1% at what you do. Why is that so important to you?
For one, it goes back to one of the things that us at True Colors believe in as racial divisiveness, generational problem as well. Like when you look around the world, when you talk about the beer industry, it ain't nobody that I've seen that look like me except maybe one guy in the beer industry. It's not too many black people. When you think of somebody who makes beer, you think of a big kind of chubby white guy with a beard. So now when I walk into a brewery, people automatically, they gonna think, hey, this guy come to drink. They don't think that, hey, you may know something about beer. And so in order just to have those conversations when you walk in the door, to put yourself on the equal playing field, and also just to kind of explain the mission, that's what actually motivates me.
And KO, when you first met George and heard about True, the company, and in terms of their vision, did you think like, is this guy, man, he's amazing, he's a visionary, or is he crazy?
Yes.
They usually go together.
Yes, they do. He's crazy and he's a visionary. I thought both. I thought that if somebody was willing to take off a challenge in a industry that he wasn't familiar with or didn't come from, it wasn't a part of his story, but he was going to add it to a chapter in his life, that was powerful. It was amazing. And so I wanted to jump on board and be a part of the process of him actually building out True Colors. You know, when I initially had that first conversation with George, and everything starts with that conversation, right? I thought to myself, I can't believe that this serial entrepreneur from Wilmington, and he's a white guy, obviously, right?
That's I love.
Spent time, working with the gangs, in the hood, in the community. And it takes not just a lot of guts, but it takes a belief, that there's something that not just can be changed, but that he's willing to put his hand to the plow and change. And so I thought that he was crazy. I thought he was a visionary, but I also thought that it was powerful. And I wanted to be a part of the process, a little bit of change. And you mentioned racial divisiveness in our community gathering, where we brought together people of different backgrounds. And that blueprint, we had a conversation about it recently with Captain Ron Johnson, who was a part of the riots in Ferguson. And in that blueprint, and in the process that we have here, we believe that conversations challenge beliefs, and that's for everyone. And so in True Colors, we're really big about just, talking to each other, because you'll find that you have more things in common than you have things that separate you.
That's actually a really good interview. That KO and Press did this interview with Ron Johnson, last week was it, I think? I think they just posted it up on the True Colors LinkedIn page. If anyone's interested, it's a pretty good interview on this topic.
Yeah, and it goes back, that initial conversation I had with George changed what I believed was possible. It changed what I believed could happen in the inner city, in the community that I came from. I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York, but I've been in Wilmington for almost 14 years, and this has become my home. And so to be able to work with George and partner with him in True Colors to make a significant change in the community that we live in, and eventually across the United States, who wouldn't want to be a part of the process of making that change?
And actually, George, on that note, and we hinted at it a little bit earlier, but we could open it up a little bit. What are the opportunity for investors to partner? Are they able to get involved as simply an investment, but how about beyond and potentially as a board opportunity as well?
We're putting together, so we've never raised money for True Colors until this. We started right in front of COVID, which was not the greatest time, obviously. Prior to that, I funded True Colors myself, because it was, to be honest, it was a bit of an experiment. I wasn't sure where it was going, and so until we had a reasonable amount of confidence we were going to succeed, I never took outside money. We just reopened the cap raise this month, so 2 weeks ago. We've got a convertible note. We're raising $15 million. We're about $4.5–5 million into it, I think, right now. $15 million convertible notes that we're selling, I think, $200,000 increments. Generally is what we look for.
And are you generally finding that prospective investors, more than just their capital, want to be involved? They want to be hands-on, and how could they do that?
Some do, and so to your point, I didn't answer your question, actually, I'm sorry about that. We have not had a board. We're going to put one together this summer once we see who the primary investors are. The boards, with all of my companies, we always have a board. Generally, say 8 or 9 people. We'll have at least 2 outsiders that are not involved with the company, and then we'll have investors and a couple of insiders. And we'll start putting that together. So that's one way to be involved. Some of our investors, too, are people who own large beer distributors. Obviously, they can help me out a lot. They can help the company by helping with distribution. Some people are involved in large venues. Then there's ABI and people like that. So there's all kinds of ways to get involved if that's what you'd like to do.
And are you concerned and thought about how some investors may think investing in a company that is made up of active and rival gang members may be risky as an investment?
Well, I mean, I'm in the startup business. Every company's risky as an investment that's a startup, right? And so that's differentiated. Of course, there's this component that people are not familiar with. Generally, all it takes is for them to come and meet or get on a Zoom call with a handful of our team for them to understand what's going on here. The folks that maybe they thought were dangerous gang members from the street are actually really amazing people that are doing amazing work. It was just back in the time when they were active on the street, they didn't have a lot of choices. And I would encourage people to watch some of the True Colors TV stuff on this topic, because that really, if you're a white guy, I was the white guy who said, dude, why don't you just make the right choices? Why do you keep making these bad choices? It's on you, right? That's what I used to believe. Until I finally got a chance to know people and go into the hood and see what people were going through and what brought them years and years of very difficult situations. You very quickly understand why they believe their choices are narrow, and really all that's left is opportunities that are not going to lead to a good outcome. And once you understand that, then it's very difficult, like I said earlier, not to empathize and get involved and try to solve the problem.
And a broad question to Press and to KO, coming up where you're not getting the opportunities that some others are getting, the school systems are not as dedicated as they are, quote unquote, in white communities. You don't have the opportunity in front of you going through history and in immediate and looking forward. And that looks to opportunities to make money, because we all want to be successful and make money to do things that are illegal. How do you then say, well, I could make XYZ amount of money doing this activity, or I could work for minimum wage? It's an unfair choice for that community to make. What I like about what George is doing is he's coming in saying, the hell with minimum wage. No, we want to pay a proper salary to make this enticing to you to look at this as being something you want to do, not something that could lead down a path of going to jail.
President, so that is you asked, it sort of ties into that for-profit thing. So you're right, we pay a proper salary, but as press can tell you, if you don't perform the work, you're going to get bounced. It happens less and less these days, but in the beginning, it happened. It's just like any other organization. We have very high expectations.
Yeah, you have to perform here. And that goes back to part of our culture being gang centric, right? When you're in the gang, you put in work and your status is elevated, sure, right? When you have a product, you understand your target market, you understand how to take the block. That's what we call scaling, right? And packaging. And so it's all these skills that parallel and that translates here into the building. And so if you want to grow in True Colors, you have to do the same thing you did in your gang. You have to put in the work. And you have to you just have to keep doing it, keep striving. You're educating yourself to reduce the amount of time it takes to get over this learning curve in this industry you may not have ever worked in. But you're applying the skills that you would use on the street. You're just using it in a different way. And part of what we do here at True Colors that I love is showing our team members how to parallel that to get to where you want to go to be successful, not just in dollars, but in life when it comes to their family and their community as well. And I know Press can speak about his experience, but even my personal experience, I spent some time behind bars, almost 5 years in prison, and I came home and I took advantage of every opportunity that I had. I went back to school, got a couple degrees, moved to Wilmington to get married, and I met George, and meeting George was another one of those opportunities that I realized that some of my backstory can help connect me to where I was positioned at right now. And so I jumped on board, but I realized that it took a lot of hard work to continue to grow. And so everything we do here is not based on just showing up. We have to do more than just show up with true colors.
Yeah, no, that's very well said, and certainly amazing what everyone as part of the team and the community is doing. George, for those that would like to inquire and learn more, how could they do so? A website, an email? How could they get access to the video and some of the things that you're mentioning now?
Our website is truecolors.life, truecolrs.life, truecolors.life. My email is gtaylor@truecolors.co, which is very confusing. Actually, we're having it switched over right now. As I say that, I'm like, wow, that's really confusing. But anyway, and we're easy to find. If you Google True Colors, North Carolina, we're easy to find.
That is true, and pretty amazing what you guys are doing online. So I do encourage, is there any social media accounts where people could learn more as well?
If you go to True Colors Brew on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, any of the social media channels, you'll see us. You'll see a lot of our truecolors.tv content as well. There's videos there. If someone's interested in seeing more, we've got about a 45-page look on what True Colors is all about that we're happy to send a link to or a hard copy of. It's basically our business plan. We're very transparent in how we're doing it and what's going on. So all you need to do is ask.
Very authentic as well, which is even more important. And that's fantastic. I think you're doing something that's amazing, George, and really great to also hear Preston, his story, and KO. I love what you guys are doing. I'm a big fan and supporter. I hope to be of value in some way, more than simply just a 1-hour video and podcast that we're doing now. So I look forward to staying in touch, and I thank you all very, very much for being very special guests on our show today, doing an amazing initiative. And again, given the time that we're recording this, which for those that may not know is June 17th in 2020, going through grave challenges, not only of COVID and isolation with that, but with the unrest that's occurring in the country as well. Again, everyone, my name is Angelo Robles. I'm the host of Angelo Robles' Effective Family Office podcast and founder and CEO at Family Office Association, a global membership organization dedicated to families of success and their family offices, doing content or providing content, hosting events now online, but one day we'll be back to traditional and more modern and digital. So we hope you have a chance to learn more about us at FamilyOfficeAssociation.com. But the true star of today is the wonderful team at True Colors. We encourage you to reach out to them to learn more. They're doing great things. And again, George, Press, and KO, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Angelo. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Pleasure's mine. Thank you.